Hello and welcome back to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Liam, and joining me today are Jeremy and Alex. We're missing Serge for today, but don't worry about it. And before we start anything else, Alex, you're actually going to be missing for a little while after this episode, right?
I'm going to be gone for a long time. So the skinny is come the 22nd. I'm away for 10 days filming Road Quest, which will be a great show that I think you'll very much enjoy. And then immediately after that, I'm going on vacay for a month.
Perfect.
So after that, we'll be back. But in the meantime, these fine gentlemen, plus Serge, and plus maybe mystery guest will be filling in.
Yeah, so fear not, still North 100, but we just wanted to fill you in on that. Without further ado, I just want to remind you all that North 100, just like all content on the Loading Ready Run video network, is brought to you by you over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. So thanks so much. We couldn't do this without your support. Let's get started with our first segment of the day, the best card you're not playing. And today we have Jeremy. What's the spice?
Can I make a guess?
Yeah.
I just hope that I soul read this. Is it Fiery Justice?
No.
Oh, I was really hoping that I would just like blind pick that.
That was a bold call. It's a red card. It costs 4 mana. It's an enchantment. It's sneak attack.
Oh.
Didn't see that coming. So this is a really renowned legacy card. It's really, really powerful. It's one of the best legacy decks, Sneak and Show.
Right.
But it's actually pretty underrepresented in Highlander. Just it's a little harder to make work. I've played it a couple times, and it's sort of just being a throw-in in those decks. You know, like I'm playing a bunch of big fatties. Like maybe I'll draw Sneak Attack and 3 guys.
Really?
But almost every time I've played Sneak Attack, it's been the best card in the deck.
Really?
Like almost every time, I'm just like, man, Sneak Attack's really good. Just gets them, and like I started tutoring for it, and then.
I was going to say, I always felt that this was like a build-around card, but like I've never thought of it as like a value card.
Yeah, like one of the decks I played it was just like red-green ramp. And I'm just like, I have channel, so I'm playing a bunch of the big Eldrazi. I have a bunch of haste dragons. I have a bunch of like really strong big ETB things like Woodfall Primus, Primeval Titan.
I mean, I suppose the trade-off of only getting to attack once, but with haste and for 1 red... is pretty good.
And you only get to attack once per thing. And like when you cast this on turn 3 in that deck at the latest, and then untap and put in 3 things, like say you put in like Inferno Titan, Primeval Titan, Oblivion Sower. Or I guess Oblivion Sower's not that good because it's on cast. But
still.
Yeah, then you get to attack for 17. You double up on the each Titan trigger.
You also just have mana to spare.
Yeah, exactly.
That's horrifying.
And so, like, just the potential nut draws with this card are so huge.
Oh, okay.
And I actually think it should see play in more decks, and there should be more build around sneak attack decks as well.
Mm.
Sweet.
Cool.
You mentioned making sure I got the original art, which I've never once noticed is
a dragon being attacked?
Yeah, the sneak attack
the dragon?
is all the little 5 goblins.
Yeah, it's the goblins sneak attacking the dragon.
Yeah, whereas the new art is a much better representation of how this card is used, which is giant green monster kills man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Is that not just a goblin from the other perspective? I think it's not, but
that's not a goblin.
It does. You could argue it badly.
I think that is how you say big green.
Yeah. Maybe they realized.
It's a bit like a Fangren.
You got to remember, at the time that this card was printed, though, there actually weren't that many super unfair things to put into play, right?
No, not
Wizards
really.
had not envisioned printing 7/7s with lifelink and draw 7, pay 7.
No, or 15/15s with flying Annihilator 6.
Or even like 6/6s that leave behind 2 bodies when they die.
Yeah, that would even be good.
So anyway.
So today we're going to talk about underappreciated archetypes. So we put out a tweet asking you what color combinations, what archetypes you felt like we hadn't talked about enough, and we're going to try and hit on some of those. Not all of them, obviously. So if we don't talk about yours today, don't worry. I've cataloged all the suggestions people have made. It might come up later. We don't know exactly when.
It might be so underrepresented that we've not heard of it.
That's also true. That's also possible. But so today we're going to talk about a couple. They're sort of linked. The first color combination we're going to talk about is Rakdos. And this was by far and away the most widely requested. Many replies with many likes. People obviously want to hear about Rakdos. So let's start off. What Rakdos decks are there in the format? Just very briefly. What kind of decks do we typically see?
The main one you see is sort of the sort of off big red deck, the black-red dragons deck.
Singed red.
Yeah.
Burnt.
Charred.
Yeah, so this is like, I've sort of referred to this deck before as big idiot dragons. So this is just like a deck that's making a lot of mana, casting some big idiots, ideally killing you with
Yeah,
them.
you're getting, the black is getting like Dragon Lord, Call Again, maybe effects like Terminate.
And hand attack, I think, is one of the big ones for the big red deck, because lots of times you're not interacting with combo very much. You're like hoping you draw the right lock piece and it resolves and it sticks around.
Yep.
So yeah, you're getting stuff like Mind Twist. You play the holy trinity of 1 mana discard. You play a Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Duress.
I was actually going to say, Matt, who's definitely played the most big idiot dragons, doesn't play hand attack in the biggest version.
Interesting.
He's just playing the black for these kinds of
get
like
him.
Rakdos Return, Mind Twist, really splashy discard effects, and then some of the splashier Rakdos
Oh, so
cards.
rather than just like pick and choose everything, just like get it out.
Yeah, exactly. He's talked about just trying to make that deck as unfair as possible. So you're either trying to cast a lock piece on turn 1, like a Blood Moon or a Trinisphere, or you're trying to cast a dragon on turn 2 or 3. And he just felt like the 1 mana hand attack spells didn't line up in those curves as well.
Fair.
And so, yeah, he cut them. The other red-black deck that I think we see a little bit of is kind of an offshoot of the Dragons deck, which is like just red-black mid-range, bunch of removal spells. And that deck is definitely the like...
Yeah, I've played that deck a couple times.
Yeah.
You're just like a red-black mid-range deck, and the reason you want to be red and black is for hand attack in black and Blood Moon effects in red.
Yeah.
And you have probably the best removal suite of any 2-color deck.
It's pretty good. I mean, like white's in there as well. At least the best removal suite of like destroy effects and non-exile effects.
Yeah, your removal is also just super cheap. Like, you can play as much removal for 2 mana or less
Yeah, well,
as you want. Like,
your options are huge. Like white has incredible removal, and the quality of it starts very high and drops off pretty precipitously. Whereas like red starts high and gradually tapers off because it's like, lightning bolt, chain lightning, 3 or 5 searing spear effects, and then
and you
other
have
stuff.
like Arc
But,
Trail, Forked Bolt.
Yeah.
You can get into your Pyroclasms if you want
I
to.
think red-black's actually also better at killing planeswalkers too. Dreadbore is really powerful, useful effect for that. So speaking of, what are some of the cards that might draw you towards playing Rakdos? What are the cards that are really sort of exciting about it? Dreadbore is actually, I think, a great example of one. Terminate is another one that comes to mind for me.
So Dreadbore is a sorcery. It's black and red, and it's sorcery, and it just says destroy target creature or planeswalker.
boom,
Yeah,
get them.
it's sorcery speed, kill most things.
It's
Yeah.
very good. Like this is seldom like a bad top deck.
One of the more recent additions to Rakdos, and one of the reasons I've been drawn to it a little more, is actually a new planeswalker, Duretti Ingenious Iconoclast.
Oh yeah.
It's 1 black-red for a planeswalker. It comes in with 3 loyalty. It has a +1, put a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token with Defender onto the battlefield. -1, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, destroy target artifact or creature. And -6, choose target artifact card in a graveyard, so any graveyard, or artifact on the battlefield, either side of the battlefield. Put 3 tokens that are copies of it onto the battlefield.
I'm glad you brought this card up because it reminds me of, like, I've kind of wanted to build around this card because I feel like there might be enough density of red and black artifact matters cards to make some sort of like mid-rangey style deck. Like this is a kind of deck that would play like Shrapnel Blast and maybe the shock that becomes
Galvanic
huge.
Blast. Galvanic Blast.
Even like Unlicensed Disintegration.
Yeah.
It's just like you play, artifact threats and maybe even just like rocks and stuff like that. And you can do weird things like maybe this is a Goblin Welder deck.
Yeah, that's another card I've been wanting to play with more. But just to go back to Duretti quickly, I think its ability to see play in just like non-artifact decks as well as just like artifact decks makes it really appealing. Like it fuels its own removal. It's a planeswalker that comes down on 3 and starts clogging up the board, and then it forces your opponent to play into it because you're just creating blockers every turn, and then it also gives you the ability to remove your opponent's most potent threats, and also the ability to destroy artifacts sort of like offhandedly is something that is really, really powerful. Just like
It's a lot of very strong.
that's one of the reasons a braid is so prevalent in the format, is because just like you tagged destroy target artifact onto an already mostly playable card.
One of the things that I think about when I think of Rakdos is aggro, and I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Cards like Spike Jester, so just like a 3/1 for haste for a black and a red. You know, there's like Olivia Mobilized for War, Olivia Voldaren Mobilized for
I've
War.
always wanted to play that card.
Yeah.
Always wanted to play it, but it's just like, what deck do you go in?
Right, and so you'll notice a theme, right, is that we're talking about these cards, they sound really powerful, many of them are objectively powerful, but there's not yet a shell, and it feels like there should be a Rakdos aggro shell. So let's talk about briefly maybe why that hasn't manifested yet. JR, I know you had a tumultuous experience trying to build Rakdos aggro about 6 months ago.
Oh dear.
Alex,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done it before. I've tried to do it before.
I think we've all sort of given it a shot.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just-
It just feels like it should be there, and so I'll quickly talk about my rationale was when I did it. I thought, all right, the best part of playing aggro is when you have the really good 1-drop curves, right? You go 1-drop and then 2-drop 1-drops on one, and then maybe play a removal spell and you run them over. And so black gives you a bunch more 1-drops. So now you get all the red 1-drops, the black 1-drops. You get to play like the Dark Confidant effects out of black. Your removal gets slightly better, so you get a little bit better at clearing the way for your bunch of 1-drops.
Yep.
And I put this deck together, and then I drew Basic Swamp in my opener, and my deck had a lot of double red cards in it, and I felt really bad. Jera, how'd it go for you?
About the same. I found it's really hard to build red X aggro, especially with black or white, which are the most natural color pairs, because both of all three of those colors really demand really high mana investment. Like
Yeah,
you
they're greedy colors. Lots of
Yeah,
pips.
you want to play all 1-drops from each color, and the strongest cards are always double pip. Like Hymn to Torek is one of the strongest black 2-drops, double
Hymn to
pip.
Torek, Sinkhole.
Eidolon of the Great Revel is one of the strongest
That
red
card
2-drops.
is insane in aggro.
Yeah, it's like,
Ugh.
but all these cards are like really, really iconic 2-drops, and then like Brimaz, King of Oreskos, and like I could go on about the white 3-drops that require double pip. So it's really hard to, in a deck where you only want to draw 3 lands by like maybe turn 4 or 5,
You have
to
to
have
perfect
it
mana.
work. So you just like have to hope to draw all duels, and then you're gonna end up taking a bunch of damage from your lands, and
Which like theoretically shouldn't matter, but it makes you worse in the aggro mirror,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
pretty awkward. It also makes your aggro deck that should typically not be very vulnerable to things like Wasteland egregious against Wasteland,
Yeah.
right?
and even Blood Moon will often shut you off of your splash color,
Yeah.
Which is crazy because you should probably be playing Blood Moon.
or at least Magus of the Moon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Alex, how'd your experience with building Rakdos aggro
The
go?
last time I think I put it together was ages ago, and it's just like you load in all these amazing cards, and I think I don't remember who it was who said this to me first, but it's like Rakdos is like
Ah, yes, the cack.
the worst combined qualities of mono red and mono black when you want it to be the opposite. Because like mono red is amazing. It's
Yeah.
like it's a tier 1 deck in our format, always has been and probably always will be. Mono black aggro, not quite tier 1, but it's like it's seen a lot of play in the past. We haven't seen it around for a while. It tends to be like really good when combos prevalent in the format.
it's one of the better aggro
Very
decks
good
in-
against
Because like
combo,
it
yeah.
clocks in really well and it has like great disruption.
And the fact that you abuse your own life total doesn't matter. That's the third thing. The combo decks are dealing 50 to you with Aether Flux Reservoir, not
Yeah.
chipping you away slowly.
So you'd think that, pairing those two together, you would get something good. But for some reason, it just gets worse. Like you said, your mana's not that great. You just you're a slower clock. Sometimes your disruption ends up in being dead draws. It's just it's weird and almost inexplicable. You're like, this should be nuts. I'm playing all this good stuff and it just doesn't happen for you.
One of the issues I think comes up is inherent with the inconsistency in Highlander. because you were mentioning you draw your disruption later, and I think that's a great point, right? In your aggro deck, you'd love to have Thoughtseize on turn 1, maybe. Thoughtseize, Pack Rat, or Thoughtseize Eidolon sounds like an insane kind of start, right? You Thoughtseize away their answer, then you play this thing that's going to punish them for the rest of the game. But the problem is that later on in the game, you draw Thoughtseize, and like if you're
very bad.
Yeah, exactly. It can be really dead. So what ends up happening is that you have these sort of perfect draws, and you map out what they ought to look like, and the perfect draws are great. But in practice, because of the way the format works out, the deck's inconsistent, and it doesn't work to the same degree.
I kind of wonder if it's maybe just something that needs to be rethought from the ground up. Like, a lot of assumptions that you take into building the deck, you draw from other decks, but maybe that needs to go completely out the window and start again. It's like maybe we're not trying to take the correct parts that would combine together. It's like maybe you take sort of red's aggressive nature and add a little bit of the resilience that black can opt you into, like the threats that come back that are difficult to make go away forever.
Could play Timoret the Murder King.
I've always wanted to play that guy. If I ever played Commander, which I probably never will, I would definitely play that guy.
What does Timoret do?
Red, black, 2/2, legendary zombie warrior. 1 and a red, sack a creature, and he domes an opponent or target player for 2. 1 and a black, sacrifice a creature, return him from your graveyard to your hand. I've thought about playing this guy in Aristocrats. The problem is that his mana investment is really huge. It doesn't look like much, but if you're trying to get multiple activations on a turn and play creatures, it's prohibitive to actually make it work. This was also part of a couple of ill-fated zombie builds. There's a couple of pretty good red zombies. This, so-so. Anathemancer is pretty live.
It's pretty hot. That's actually another card that might draw you to boards black-red, actually.
Yeah, there's a couple of these weird effects that aren't... Anathemancer is a half-size, one-sided Price of Progress. It's 1 black-red for a 2/2 zombie wizard. When it comes into play, it deals damage to target player equal to the number of non-basic lands they control.
Yeah.
And it's not symmetrical.
Yeah.
So you just nug them for their board.
And it has Unearth for 7.
Which you'll probably never get to. Also, Shambling Remains.
Yeah. 3 mana, 4/3 can't block.
It's a good beater. 4 power for 3. It can't block. It unearths for black-red, which means that if it's dead, you can bring it back once with haste, and then it's exiled.
A little 4-ball.
One of the other premier black-red cards is Falcon Wrath Aristocrat that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That shows up in a lot of other decks, like Full-Color Blood and so forth.
4-color blood, and even red-green aggro will often splash for this card. It's splash for Deathrite Shaman and Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Good.
Just because she's one of the best aggro finishers in the game. The 1 toughness is what's glaring at first until you read her activated ability. So she's 2 black-red for a vampire, 4/1, has flying and haste, and you can sacrifice a creature. Falcon Wrath Aristocrat is indestructible this turn. If the sacrificed creature was a human, put a +1/+1 counter on her.
I always flip the way these abilities work. I'm always like, it's sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then I go to try to kill it with my removal spell that's unconditional, and then they make their Falcon Wrath Aristocrat indestructible, and I die.
This card is such a sucker punch because it's just pow, and even if you have something to deal with it, it might not matter.
Yeah.
Because it just cracks in. You're like,
it requires a very specific answer, and it hits really hard, and it comes down pretty early.
Yeah, It also has amazing art. This is one of my favorite cards ever printed. It's so good.
So let's talk about maybe reimagining Rakdos, sorry. Because you sort of started to talk about it. Yeah. And I think that from the start of this conversation, those listeners who were so interested in hearing about Rakdos might be slightly disheartened to hear, hey, the aggro deck sucks. But maybe it doesn't suck, right? So what are some ideas that we've tossed around, or maybe what are the cards that are the kind of cards that we think are missing in order to make Rakdos a little bit better? I think your idea actually of making it maybe a little more resilient is not a bad one. Something that I have in my head played around with is thinking about playing mono red with a black splash and not splashing the 1-drops, splashing higher up the curve.
I thought about that as well. Splash some of the more must kill things, so you present your opponent with a really difficult choice of whether they spend their early removal on your aggressive 1-drops, or you follow up with things like Bob, things like Asylum Visitor, things that are just gonna generate you continuous advantage.
Yeah. And because that would at least alleviate some of the strain on the mana base, right? If you're trying to cast, like, I think you can't play double black spells in the deck.
I was gonna say, I think that you need to make some really, really hard cuts for pips.
Like, you're just not supposed to play Hymn to Turok, which sounds crazy.
Yeah,
but
like that sounds insane. I think you need to cut a lot of like nutso cards from this deck for the sake of being able to cast them. Like, I think your deck should be playing like some 1-drops and then only 1 in a color spells and then like 2 in a color spells. Except for like maybe 1 or 2, because like Sulfuric Vortex is probably correct to play.
I think you have to commit to playing some double red spells. Like, I think, like,
yeah, but you do have to go one direction or the other.
yeah, and I think in the aggro version, you just are priced into playing double red spells like Eidolon, Sulfuric Vortex, as you mentioned, Scab Clan, Berserker,
Yeah.
are all just too good to not play in.
You do have to whittle it down to like the
Aggro
barest
decks.
essentials, like the craziest ones.
And I also
So-
think you have to commit to not playing as many colorless lands. Like, you're probably not playing Mishra's Factory, Mutavault in this deck, for example.
You could probably sneak in a couple of the secret duels, like Undiscovered Paradise.
Yeah, Undiscovered Paradise, you probably want to
play
play...
Lava Claw Reaches in this deck.
I don't like the tap land in the
I
aggro
love
deck.
that card.
You're the only one.
I know.
It's like constantly rated as the lowest creature land.
I know,
It's-
and then I kill people with it. It's great.
I mean,
Really?
it is.
No one ever
it is
reads the
only
fire
one that
breathing.
attacks for 20.
Yeah. People always miss the fire breathing.
Is
They're
this
like,
the best card you're not playing?
No. You shouldn't play this card. But you can occasionally kill people with it.
Yeah.
It dies to Lava Dart.
That is technically true, but you got a 2-for-1. You killed a land. It's wasteland plus saves you 2 damage. All right.
And they wastelanded you.
Yeah, and themselves.
Nobody,
Sure.
Does
And they had
anybody,
to sack up.
does
Yeah,
anybody actually play Lava Dart?
yeah. The mono red decks do.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really good at triggering prowess.
You know what deck actually kind of works in Rakdos? Goblins.
Yeah.
Like, the mono red goblins with a black splash actually works.
Yep.
Because you get access to, like, just a little handful of very potent cards.
Yeah.
You also get access to some silly stuff, like you can play Mog Maniac and Fire Covenant.
Yeah.
Never gotten anybody with that one, but the one time it happens, it's going to be insane.
You can also earwig squad people. Like, I remember when
Give them the squad.
when Storm was
Give 'em
really
the squad.
Yeah, when Storm and Flash Hulk were really oppressive, and there was a lot of it. I know some of our Goblins players were earwig squatting people. So another card that just goes into the classic Rogues deck. Really powerful.
It's also just a 5/3 for 3.
Yeah, which is, I think, the actual reason why you want to
To
play it.
explain Earwig Squad, it's 3 black for a 5/3, but it has Prowl. So if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with a Goblin or a Rogue, you can pay a discounted cost for it, which is 2 and a black. And when it enters the battlefield, if its Prowl cost was paid, search target opponent's library for 3 cards and exile them. Then-
Use Sadistic Sacrament them.
yeah, you find out whether they pass the sad sack test.
Well, I mean, it's
I'm-
not kicked, unfortunately. You got to flicker this 3 times, somehow paying the prowl cost. Not sure.
You
possible.
also have a 5/3.
That's true, and that's the big thing. It's really good against combo because even if it doesn't lock them out of killing you, it almost certainly makes it harder.
Yep.
And it's a big clock. So
It's a huge block.
Other notable cards that you get in this deck, Mad Auntie,
yeah,
Yeah.
just another lord.
And
just like another lord that's really cheap. And the perfect mana cost for this deck, it's 2 and a black, so it's easy to slide into the deck. It's a 2/2. Other goblin creatures you control get +1/+1 and tap, regenerate another target goblin. It's good.
So the last thing I want to talk about quickly with Rakdos is we've talked about almost all these decks.
Oh, right. Well, actually, Vile Smash of the Fierce, I don't know if you play that in
No, the other
No.
one that gets in is Grenzo,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, right.
the
Right.
dungeon warden.
Yes, this guy, black, red, X. For a 2/2, he enters with X +1/+1 counters, and he has an activated ability to put the bottom card of your library into your graveyard. If it's a creature with power less than or equal to Grenzo's power, put it onto the battlefield. So you just start viling random stuff from the bottom of your deck. Because this is, like, Goblins is a 50 creature deck.
It has a bunch for sure.
But,
Many.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're sort of blind flipping, which is sort of in flavor for Goblins, but this card's potent.
But it's a powerful mana sink, which aggro decks are often lacking. So I want to talk really quickly before we move on. We've almost all the decks we've talked about have been red centric, and black has been the secondary consideration. Have we talked about potentially building a deck that's base black and splashing red? Is that worth doing? What are the problems associated with that? What do we think about that?
The mid-range decks I've played have typically been base black, splash for red. It's better with the Blood Moon plan because you wanna have more basic swamps in your deck than
Interesting.
than basic mountains. And I think black is the greedier color out of the two for red.
I definitely
and
agree with
especially-
you.
Especially when you're going mid-rangey, like the black cards are just more appealing than the red cards.
I can't unsee the monocle on this skull's face in this art, by the way.
Wait, there's a skull?
Yeah. In the moon, there's a skull, and it has a monocle.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, good thing I have the Arabian Nights one.
Completely unseeable.
The dark.
Or, sorry, the dark.
Yeah.
Well, that's... I'm never going to unsee that one. Oh, no,
Nope.
wait, it's the same art. Oh, no, it is.
There's no monocle in this one.
It's
You're
just a
good.
hole.
Yeah, you're fine. Ugh. God, Graham, why do you always do this to us?
Ow! That hurts my brain.
The other thing I was going to ask is there's sort of that mono black deck you're talking about, and I've
aggressive
wondered.
one?
Sorry.
The aggressive one?
Yeah, the really aggressive mono black deck. I've wondered before about splashing cards like splashing Price, maybe splashing Blood Moon into that deck, but I don't know whether it gets too off plan because the problem is that deck is like sort of the like ritual Hypnotic Spectre kind of deck, and putting
Yeah.
cards that are not mono black in that gets a little tricky.
If you did throw in those like win the game effects, maybe there's like a mono black deck that is looking to do the mana denial thing. Like maybe you don't even put in hand attack. You're just like aggress with mono black threats and then drop a Blood Moon.
And Magus.
Or drop a Blood Moon, or maybe even drop a Ruination, Magus, or
Stone Rain some people.
I don't think you Stone Rain. I think you get everything or nothing.
I think you could also maybe play like a black-red aggressive tempo deck that's just like... I played a Golgari deck like this before, but I was like trying to play like threat on 1, threat on 2, then just cast a bunch of LD spells, and you could do that in black-red as well. You could like play like threat on 1, threat on 2, and then...
See, I've always been turned off land destruction spells that don't have a body attached to them, just because like there's such bad top decks late game.
Yeah.
Like they can be really miserable. Although you do get a couple of them, like the ones that you could play would be like Choking Sands, which is quite good actually.
Not in the aggressive deck.
Yeah, I suppose not. But
don't wanna-
of the land destruction spells that black has access to, it's one black sorcery to
Oh, wait.
start destroy
No,
target
this one's good. Yeah.
What was the one I was
non-swamp
thinking of?
land.
What's the one that deals...
Damage to all creatures.
Which?
Yeah.
I don't know. Which
Oh,
one
you
you're talking.
Icequake.
Icequake.
Yeah, Choking Sands is destroy non-swamp.
yeah.
If that
It's
land was
Molten Rain,
non-basic,
yeah.
it deals 2 damage to its
Choking Sands
controller.
is great.
Yeah,
I was thinking of the other one.
It's like a
Icequake.
slightly crappier version
This
of Molten
one's
Rain.
still fine.
There's definitely a 3-mana one that...
Damages your own creatures.
damages creatures.
I know the one you're talking about. It's not Rain of Tears. It's
No, Rain of Tears is just Stone Rain.
It's not important.
Whatever. There's one that wraths everything and it's poo. Don't play it. But yeah, like you could maybe play a tiny handful of the 1-for-1 spot destroy land cards. Maybe this is the deck that you get Avalanche Riders and Ravenous Baboons into.
It certainly
Goblin
makes
Settler.
your Mox and Mana Crypt starts a lot more devastating too. Like when you do have
Yeah.
those fast mana starts out of the aggro deck,
Yeah.
gonna be even more punishing.
So
All right,
it's worth trying.
it's definitely worth
Maybe
trying.
it'll work. Maybe not. We'll
So
see.
that's Rakdos briefly. So don't be too distraught.
Rancid Earth. That's
That's
the one.
I knew it. I knew it existed.
Don't
You
play
need to
this
have
card
Threshold, though.
unless you're Pox.
All right. Anyway,
Anyhow.
so we talked about Rakdos as much as we're going to talk about it today. Don't get too discouraged. There's definitely ways that you can build the deck.
Try building this deck.
Yeah.
I very much encourage
The other
people to
thing
try
is,
stuff.
it-
Think way outside the box. Like maybe go for some insane ideas. The worst that's going to happen is it won't work, and you'll learn something that doesn't work. So
Yeah, they're also super underexplored. So like, just because we're saying they like haven't necessarily worked here in the past doesn't mean much, because they haven't been played very much and they haven't been super fleshed out. So
Yeah, there's not that much information about them. So speaking of, let's move on to the next color combination we're going to talk about. And this is one we get comments about all the time. I see it in the comment section, maybe every other video. And this is people asking about Boros. People saying, oh, you talk about Death and Taxes being a really good deck. You talk about Mono Red being a really good deck. Why not put the two together? And so to sort of quickly abbreviate some of the portion, I've given this answer in the comment section a bunch. They run into a similar problem as Rakdos, the Boros decks do, which is that Mono Red and Mono White are both so good that there's not necessarily enough incentive to play a mixture of the two. That being said, let's talk about the kind of cards that would drag you towards playing Boros, or that would make you want to play Boros. The thing that I think about the most is equipment and equipment synergy. And I think that as we've thought about it more and more, that seems to be where a lot of people's heads are at, is that maybe if there is a Boros deck, it's some kind of equipment matters deck. Because
So mad.
do you still
right
have that
now.
Sunforger, by the way?
I do.
Oh,
For
good.
those of you listening, Graham just put Sunforger on the screen.
Perfect.
Alex's favorite.
Yeah.
I feel sick.
I wonder if Card Kingdom's processed my order for 500 Sunforgers yet.
That's, I mean, I really needed something to use as fill. Yeah, okay, so lots and lots and lots of equipment support cards exist in those two colors, like tons of them.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're good enough remains to be seen. Now, this might be particularly exciting because like a few more pretty sweet looking ones came out with Dominaria. And every time a set comes out that like adds a bit of support for a deck, it's like, maybe this works now. I think that this is definitely an archetype worth exploring.
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone has recently either.
Yeah, it's tricky and weird. My feelings on the equipment deck is that you want to jam in like tons of equipment, and then if you don't have creatures, those cards are super dead. It's almost like an A+B sort of deck, where you want to make sure that you have creature and equipment, and if you have one or the other, the deck's not that great.
I think one of the things that's happened recently that helps this deck a bunch is that they've printed better cheap equipment.
I agree.
Because previously one of the problems you ran into is you said, well, I want to play a bunch of equipment.
Yeah.
So let's say I want to play like 8 pieces of equipment or something like that. After you're like GT, maybe you were going to play Bone Splitter, everything else costs 3 or more, right? Grafted War Gear, the swords, all that kind of stuff. But as they printed cards like Bloodstained Battle Axe or
Bloodforged.
Bloodforged Battle Axe,
An exciting
yeah,
add to
like
this
that,
deck. I
that
think.
card's really powerful and costs 1. And so as they print more cards like that, I think it helps a lot. So it's interesting. I mean, I think that this is when we're talking about Boros decks that have seen success. Honestly, there's basically none, right? Like you played your big Boros deck.
It was pretty fun.
Which
I don't know how
seemed decent.
good it was. It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like
You
the
did
best
pretty
parts
well
of
with it
Big
a
White
couple
and Big
times.
Red.
Yeah.
So it only follows that when you combine 2 powerful decks, it will create an equally powerful, reasonable deck.
Well,
Yeah.
good phrasing.
But so the aggro deck, actually a while ago there was a Boros aggro deck running around, right? There were some people playing it.
I've played it before.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my most interesting matches against Storm was Boros Aggro versus Storm.
Huh.
Not the matchup you'd guess, but
Yeah.
No.
it was an Aether Vial and an Avid Mind Sensor, and
I wonder.
Some dancing, I guess.
So
Yeah.
Serge has tried building the Boros like equipment. He built Suit 'em Up Affinity, which was just like all in on like as many artifacts and as many equipment as possible. And I wonder if maybe he went a little too far with that. So maybe you try building like a solid aggro shell, and the cards that you include that care about equipment are good on their own. Because there's a lot of cards that care about equipment that are garbage if they don't have equipment. Like, I'm thinking Goblin Cavalier, for example. This
Yes.
card's insane if it's equipped, and just trash if
Core
it's not.
Duelist.
Yeah, Core Duelist. Yeah, Goblin Cavalier is a 1-drop goblin with trample, and it gets +2/+0 for each equipment attached to it. But if you had no equipment, would you play a 1/1 for 1 with trample? Probably not.
You shouldn't is the answer to this trick question, by the way. Don't play this card.
So even the things that like discount equip costs, I don't know if you play them. However, maybe what I'm sort of working my way around to is there's a card that was printed recently. I can't remember. Is it Danitha?
Yeah,
Danitha.
Danitha
Danitha.
Capuchin.
This might be the perfect example of what this deck wants to do. Danitha Capuchin Paragon is 2 and a white for a 2/2 with First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink. Don't even need to read the rest of it. This is fine. Aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. I think this is what you want more of. Cards that you're not sad to rip if you don't have equipment, but make the equipment better. And then you don't play every equipment, just like a slightly bigger than normal list of the very best hits.
I don't know if I agree. I think I want to go more in on equipment to actually
Yeah?
get the value out of it.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Like there's a bunch of like home run hitter kind of equipment cards. Like there's the partner commander, the red white partner commander.
A Curie Line Singer.
Yeah, this one.
Singer?
Slinger.
All right.
Where it gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and like it doesn't have any power. This card obviously makes you want to play equipment and other artifacts, in fact. And one of my concerns, I think, is that if you just kind of like dip your toe into the pool of equipment, you don't actually get like enough of the value out of it, and you still add that same inconsistency you were worrying about, where if you just add a couple more equipment to your deck and maybe you just draw all of them at once, and then your draw ends up being really clunky. I think I'd rather go for like a slightly more high roll approach where I have a lot of like very powerful synergy, because otherwise, I think if I was just going to build like a deck with a little more equipment, I think I would just play mono white with a little bit more equipment. That's my concern. I'm trying to find reasons to be
playing red.
To be playing white and red, exactly, yeah. And so I think the reasons to be white and red are to play a bunch of equipment and a bunch of these equipment matters cards.
I think one of the new ones that's most exciting to me is Valduk, Keeper of the Flame. He's a
what now?
2 and a red for a 3/2.
It's in the same cycle as Danitha.
At the beginning of combat on your turn, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. And so if you just keep suiting this guy up, it's hard for them to win because you're attacking.
Is this a Bonesaw deck?
Oh, probably. Well,
I don't think you want to go that deep.
Is this a Lightning Greaves deck?
Potentially.
Probably.
Yeah, that's a card I could see. And that's actually a card I think is one of those classic ones where Highlander players look at it and say, oh, that's a commander card, and we kind of dismiss it a little bit, but that card's like pretty messed up.
Yeah,
at times.
it's probably a lot better than we give it credit for.
Does
And you're
good
absolutely
work a lot
right
of
that
the
it does have this reputation now. It's almost like the
Lightning Greaves.
the standard or like artifact package for Commander, where it's like everybody has a Soul Ring, everybody has Lightning Greaves, everybody has Darksteel Plate or Sun Forger. And Lightning Greaves is just good.
Yeah, this card might just be
The investment
fine.
is tiny. It's 2 mana for a 0 equip card that gives it haste and Shroud.
Yeah.
Shroud's a little awkward sometimes because it means you have to sequence carefully if you have other equipment, but...
You have a lot more subscribers, though.
But it's really good at...
what? I'm so mad. I'm so mad.
All right, carry on.
It's really good at protecting things like your engines if you end up playing those like SRAM Senior Edificer.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's sweet.
So if you like have SRAM and give him the Greaves, then you just have a super good engine.
Give him the Greaves.
Rolling.
If you have a grievance.
SRAM reads 1 and a white for a 2/2 legendary dwarf advisor. Whenever you cast an aura,
Sick
equipment,
tagline.
or vehicle spell, draw a card. And so if you have this in play and you stick the Greaves on him, then you just have a sweet draw engine in play for the rest of the game.
So, something that has only just now had my attention drawn to it. The last 3 cards we've shown, at least the creatures, have also mentioned auras.
yeah.
Is there a deck that plays equipment and auras?
There's maybe a couple you could get in.
That's tricky, right?
I just don't know what auras you really want in red and white.
Hyena Umbra?
Maybe. That's not the worst.
Madcap Skills?
That one's not bad.
You could play a couple, but
You don't have to play many.
But the problem is that you're already like exposing yourself to like huge tempo hits to them killing your creatures after you equip them, and then like exposing yourself to further tempo hits and 2-for-1s
Yeah.
with auras is just like super.
I mean, that's kind of why I brought up Hyena
super
Umbra, because
discouraging.
it at least has the capacity to protect the creature.
Yeah. I mean, if they kill it in response, it's still bad, but you're right.
Well,
if
he was
there's-
going to die anyway. But yeah, it sucks.
But yeah, you're already a creature light deck, so you're probably just cutting like other non-creature spells for these
Yeah.
auras. I don't know.
So this is another deck where a lot of exploration needs to be done, basically. It's not a deck that's been played all that much. And especially recently, I mean, Dominaria, yes, had a bunch of cards that are good in this archetype. You could just objectively say, right? They're very obviously geared towards making a Boros kind of equipment deck better.
It is possible that these archetypes are really easy to bounce off and get discouraged by, and they have reputations as being archetypes that just don't work. So no research is done. Research is done into them, so they don't advance, and so that sustains the cycle of people not playing them. So
Yeah.
maybe we need to be good scientists and go make some mistakes.
Yeah. And I just want to say really quickly, we talked a lot about the equipment deck in the Boros section because I think most of us sort of feel like that's the direction we want to go in. If you wanted to just play red-white aggro, I mean, don't be discouraged. Try it out. There are some just basic red-white aggro, or some more stock red-white aggro cards that might point you in that direction. Honor Crop Captain from Amonkhet's one that I can think of right off the top of my head that seems very powerful.
Boros Charm, Lightning Helix are big draws.
They're nice draws. That's
Honor Crop Captain is so great.
Yeah, this card's like very powerful. So there might also be some kind of go wide Boros tokens deck. I haven't given any thought to it at all, to be honest, and so that's why we haven't talked about it as much.
It would probably work. You get like some of the best token generators are in red and white, and you also get Trumpet Blasts.
Yeah, I was gonna say
So that
in some metas, the Trumpet Blast deck is just really good.
And actually, now that I think about it, the red-white tokens deck, that's actually one of the Boros decks that's been played recently. Shen played that deck for a little while.
Really?
Yeah, you're
Yeah. Shen played that deck for a little while, killed some people with it. He was like Hordling outbursting into like
So
Trumpet Blast.
base red.
Or he was like Perforos into like play 2 token generators, take 8.
Oh, baby.
I don't really know what the composition of his deck was like, but
Perforos is such a frustrating card in that deck.
with it.
I think we visited on this where it's
We
like
talked about it
the
last
card's
episode or the episode before.
insane and comes down way too late for it to be good.
Yeah, if you cast it exactly on 4, it's like occasionally pretty good, but it's like not very great to top deck. The fact that it doesn't make tokens itself to me is like really tilting. Like if this just had Heliod's ability, it would be like, oh, can we just one time?
This is maybe like a quintessentially perfect EDH card because the format is way slower. You know, you drop him at some turn, and then you just play out a bunch of planeswalkers
and you always have access to him on 4.
Yeah, exactly.
That's I think the more important thing.
That's why I think he's insane in EDH and not that great in Canadian Highlander. Because you're also kind of like tapping out to do nothing.
Yeah.
Like
Unless
you're tapping
you
out
sacrifice
a
two
lot of
mountains
mana.
to Goblin Boros or whatever it's called. Wardens. I forget what
Goblin
it's
Wardens, you have to pay mana for that though.
Do you?
No,
Yep.
You can sack 2 mountains to cast it, I thought.
Mog Alarm.
Mog Alarm. That is it.
Secret Mog Alarm.
Did I nail it?
You did.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is actually a great card that I've only really seen played in Goblins. You could probably play it in tokens. It's 1 red.
It's great in this token.
Sorcery, you may sacrifice 2 mountains instead of paying Mog Alarm's mana cost.
Yeah, you float 2 mana, cast this, then you burn at the stake them.
Holy moly.
I really gotta play this burn at the stake deck. Maybe that's what I'm gonna play tomorrow.
Boros,
All right, I'm burning at the
stake.
staking tomorrow.
Boros
That's
at the
plan.
stake.
Gotta find these cards.
It makes 2 goblins. It's the effect.
Yeah. Sorry, we were talking quite a lot there. Okay, so yeah, Rakdos, Boros. 2 archetypes that are definitely underexplored, and I think our general message from this episode is...
Go explore them.
Right. Figure it out. Feel free to explore them. We want to sort of give you the framework of where people have run into walls before, but please feel free to smash through those walls, do whatever you want.
See, now I'm just going to go home and brew.
Great. Perfect. That will serve you well in Madagascar.
Wait, what?
You're going on vacation.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
Yeah. Look,
That's a good one.
Yeah, I've been coming up with random ones. So feel free to try whatever you want, right? Don't feel as though you have to sort of adhere to these restrictions we've given you here. You should try things and strive to figure out ways that maybe these archetypes can be broken.
Yeah, like blow us away with Rakdos Elemental Tribal.
Yeah. The one thing I would note, the biggest issue you're going to run into with both of these decks is the mana. So that's the first issue I would think you'd want to look towards resolving. And once you resolve the issue with the mana, I think that there's a lot of power there, and I think there's something you could really do with them.
Yep.
So without further ado, let's move to our closing segment, Powerful Magic.
It's like he's really here.
Who, me? Yes,
Not
you.
Serge.
I see, yeah. So, Powerful Magic today is me. I'm telling the Powerful Magic story, and this is actually just from last week. So I was playing Jake, good friend, in the 0-1 bracket. We had both lost our first match, and this was game 2. Jake's playing green-white mid-range, kind of mid-range aggro, and I'm playing Bug Natural Order, sort of making some Progenituses. It was an interesting deck, and he had won game 1, and then in game 2. His opening was land that makes green mana, Mox Pearl, Soul Ring, and then tap the Soul Ring and the land to cast Lotus Cobra. And my turn 1 was Elf. Mana Elf of some variety. And my hand was actually pretty good, I thought. I was sort of like looking down at this hand being like, all right, I lost game 1, but game 2 is in the bag. So sorry, I went Elf and then this was my opponent's turn 1. Then my turn 2 was play Courser of Krufix, tapping my Elf and revealing top card of my library.
No Lotus Cobra beats for him.
No, exactly, yeah, we had to hold that one back. And then my opponent went land, cast Gideon Jura, kill your Elf. So Gideon Jura is the 5-mana planeswalker. It has a bunch of abilities. It zeros to make itself a 6/6. It -2s to destroy a tapped creature. It +2s to make all of your creatures attack it the next turn.
I used to lose to this boy all the time.
Chad.
He's very good.
Well, and so you'd think that's where the story ends, right? It's like, my opponent had the nuts. I lost. He Gideon Jura'd me out of the game.
Oh, okay.
I actually won this game.
What?
Yeah. So what happened? Yeah. I won this game. It was sweet. So what happened is that Jake kind of petered out a little bit. This was his start, and he started attacking me with this Gideon, but I was still able to develop some more mana, play some mana elves, and mana elves are actually pretty good against Gideon's +2 because they can just float mana in your main phase and you can't attack with them. So even if you can't necessarily use the mana, you keep them alive. So eventually I'm at like a reasonably low life total, and I get up to enough mana, I cast Primeval Titan, and I get to search up Dark Depths and Thespian Stage, and I have that in play. Or actually, I think I got 2 other lands, and I was planning to get the Dark Depths. I got Stage plus Cradle, I think, and then I was going to get the Dark Depths on the Primeval Titan attack. Because I figured I was losing if this died no matter what, so I went for the greedier line. Anyway, ultimately what ends up happening is that I have Merit Lodge in play and some other creatures, and Jake has this moment where he can either gain a bunch of life with his Nissa, the 3-mana Nissa. He can ultimate the 3-mana Nissa and like gain 5 life and draw 5 cards to try and find an answer to the Merit Lodge. Or he can -2 it, Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. Or he can -2 it to put a bunch of counters on his creatures and make me a dead over 2 attacks. So he opts for this line, attacks me, I go to a life total where I'm not going to be able to survive the next turn, and he's +2 to his Gideon. So my Merit Lodge is going to have to attack his Gideon. But then on my turn, I drew Brainstorm. I think he had a Thalia in play too. Yeah, he definitely did. I brainstormed for 2 mana. And I brainstormed into Maelstrom Pulse. Or no, I brainstormed into Bring to Light. That's what it was.
Oh no!
And then I was like, oh, I'm dead. And then I looked at this Bring to Light. And I was like, oh wait, I have Maelstrom Pulse in my deck. Great. And so then I Bring to Light.
Tell us what Bring to Light does.
So Bring to Light is a 5-mana sorcery with Converge. So Converge is going to care about what colors of mana you spent on it. So it says search your library for a creature, instant, or sorcery card with a converted mana cost equal to or less than the number of colors of mana spent to cast Bring to Light. Exile that card, then shuffle your library. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So I paid 7 mana for my Maelstrom Pulse because it was 6 for the Bring to Light. Then you have to pay 1 extra when you actually cast the Maelstrom Pulse. But
hold on a sec.
yes,
When you cast Bring to Light,
correct.
Can you just leave the card you get in exile until you choose to play it?
No, you got to do it.
Oh, you have to do
it.
it.
It's part of the resolution of the spell.
Okay, because I was like, you just put it on layaway and have it as a threat.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to. It's part of the.
I've seen this card mostly play in combo where you just value Bring to Light.
Well, no. I mean, I was getting
Getting
natural
natural
order
order.
with this card.
It's pretty good.
Going to get my 5-point card.
Woof.
But also getting Maelstrom Pulse. So I Maelstrom Pulse the Gideon
Gideon.
Jura, and then Jake sort of like looked down at his board, which looked, pretty unbeatable, to be fair. And then, it 20'd him, and he died. It was great.
Boosh.
Lots of fun.
People are going to get the impression that Merit Lodge is unbeatable.
It's pretty darn good.
It's
Pretty
very good. She's not unbeatable.
No, but like, tough.
She really hates Unsummoned.
Yeah.
Really
had-
hates Snap.
Merit Lodge, Ormondal, and Dragonlord Jamoka against one Elenda and lost.
Yes, that's true. That was in Snohomish. That was pretty
what?
impressive. Yeah, Jared lost a match where he had like 47 power in play.
Of flying most of it lifelink.
Yo!
It's pretty sick. All right, well, so that's been our show for the day. So if you have any more questions, feel free to tweet at us, comment on us. We love all the feedback we get from you. A reminder that this show, like everything, is brought to you by you over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Couldn't do this without your support. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
I'll see you later.